Oh hey, don't mind me, I'm just about to crack the code and prove definitively once and for all that this entire reality is just a simulation. That's right, all of your thoughts and feelings, all the highs and lows of everybody here on Starship Earth, it's all just ones and zeros in the computer of some higher being. But I'm gonna break out. I've triple checked my calculations and I believe that I found the weakest point in the simulation. Should be right about here. Oh, so that's what that was. I thought I spilled relish or something. Whoa, so this is reality. Real reality. Jeez, this kind of sucks. Hey, we got another one! Oh boy. Ever since humanity developed consciousness and started to recognize the universe around them, they've asked themselves the same questions. Where did it all come from? What's my purpose in all of this? And most importantly, can I make my own littler guy and watch him pay taxes? Look at him, he's struggling. The simulation genre might be one of the oldest genres in video game history, with one of the first being the Sumerian Game, a 1964 text-based economic simulation of ancient Sumer. The Sumerian Game was developed by Mabel Addis as a sort of experiment in the use of computers in education, which must have done well since 4 years later Cornell University funded development of several sim games, including a restaurant management game with competitive multiplayer that, as far as I can tell, is still used by Cornell students to this day. And then there's the Oregon Trail, another educational simulation game beloved by 8th graders across the US. As a Canadian, I never got to experience this one back in the day, but I'd heard about how brutal it could be. But now, as an adult, look at that, made it on the first try. No, don't look at that. But there's one game that arguably brought the simulation genre into the mainstream. Or I mean, as close to the mainstream as it's realistically going to get. SimCity, the game that put the fun into balancing the budget for the municipal government? That doesn't sound like fun. Well, there's gotta be room somewhere. This was the brainchild of Wright, who, while working on the Commodore 64 game Raid on Bungeling Bay, realized he enjoyed creating the maps more than playing the actual game. During his spare time, he started studying urban planning and developing SimCity, where maps could be built and destroyed to your heart's content. Wright had approached the publishers of Bungeling Bay, Broderbund, as well as several others, but none of them expected a game without a well-defined end goal to sell, so they all turned him down. Eventually, Broderbund agreed to a limited release on the Commodore 64, but that wasn't enough for Wright, so he created his own publisher, Maxis, to push SimCity on the masses, and it ended up becoming one of the best-selling PC games of all time, spawning multiple versions, including a Super Nintendo port and several sequels and spin-offs. I wonder how Broderbund is doing nowadays. So, let me get this straight. This isn't reality, it's just a deeper level of the simulation, and you're all different versions of me from different simulated timelines. You're from the timeline where I'm Scottish. Oh, you got it, lad. You're from the timeline where I have long hair. In my timeline, everyone else has really short hair. And which timeline are you from again? Oh, I just spilled relish on the floor and ended up here. Alright, so what are we gonna do? About what? Well, we gotta find a way back to our own timelines. There isn't any way back, laddie. You better get comfortable. Wright and Maxis went on to make a sequel, SimCity 2000, as well as several spin-offs such as Sim Farm, Sim Town, Streets of SimCity, and SimCopter, which would let you import maps from SimCity 2000, and SimAnt, which was about ants. SimCopter was also infamous for containing an Easter egg that caused hundreds of buff dudes in Speedos to show up and make out with each other, which as far as I know isn't really a realistic simulation of the helicopter pilot experience, but I've never been on the force, so who knows. Maxis was acquired by EA in 1997, securing themselves a publisher for the foreseeable future, and together EA and Maxis basically became synonymous with sandbox simulation games. After finishing up SimCity 3000, Wright went to work on another secret project. Once again feeling inspired after delving into technical manuals for fields he wasn't involved in, he created The Sims. The Sims was yet another sandbox game, but instead of an entire city, you'd build a house and watch over a single family as they go about their lives. Wright liked it because it helped him work through the stress of rebuilding his home after a fire, EA liked it because they could make a fuck ton of money selling expansion packs, and the fans loved it because they could make all their little guys kiss. All was good. As time went on though, EA's management of Maxis was proving once and for all that they weren't so much the benevolent masters Wright thought they were, and instead were very much the guys who did that to Dungeon Keeper. A reboot of SimCity came out in 2013 and it forced you to always be online despite there barely being any actual multiplayer features. And even after they removed the online requirements, the limited city size still made it frustrating to play any one city for more than a few hours. And when The Sims 4 came out in 2014, it was missing features that were in The Sims 3 at launch, like the open world, toddlers, pools, terraforming, and a whole lot more. It quickly became clear that EA was more interested in siphoning money out of people by selling more and more expansion packs rather than making any kind of decent game. But Maxis isn't the only name in sim games anymore. Sid Meier built up a reputation as a superstar sim game dev by focusing on making games that are more fun than realistic, and he already had a few successful flight sims under his belt by the time he decided to change it up and make a piracy simulator set in the 16th to 17th century Caribbean. Meier's publisher Microprose was skeptical about the hard pivot from aerial combat to Elizabethan-era naval warfare, so at the suggestion of Robin Williams of all people, they slapped Sid's name on the box hoping to get some name recognition. And apparently it worked. Sid Meier's Pirates sold way better than any of Microprose's prior flight sims, and ironically led to Sid Meier, the shy nerd who just wanted to code games and thought a game about managing railroads would be fun, becoming the face of the company. He was right about the train thing too. Sid Meier's Railroad Tycoon fucked. In fact, it fucked so hard that other devs started to take notice. There was a whole host of Tycoon games coming out in the 90s and 2000s in its wake, but they really picked up after Scottish game dev Chris Sawyer took a stab at the genre with Transport Tycoon, also published by Microprose. Back in my timeline, we presented him with the Great Scott Award for that, along with William Harkness, William McDougall III, and William Wallace. Hey, one of those was a Simpsons character. Which one? I don't know. While basking in the success of Transport Tycoon, Sawyer went on a tour of amusement parks in Europe and the US and developed a love of roller coasters. So much so that when he went back to work, he decided his next game would be about roller coasters. RollerCoaster Tycoon was what really cemented the tycoon genre as a full-on industry trend. Even though games like Pirates and Railroad Tycoon were surprisingly fun, they still mostly only appealed to an older audience, whereas RollerCoaster Tycoon was about fucking roller coasters. Of course little Timmy was all over it. RollerCoaster Tycoon was a huge hit and got multiple sequels and of course kept the flood of business sim games coming. Mall Tycoon, Airport Tycoon, Fast Food Tycoon, Casino Tycoon, Zoo Tycoon, Trailer Park Tycoon, Deep Sea Tycoon, Mall Tycoon 2. Yeah, the market was so flooded with these, they started giving them away in cereal boxes. No, you see, they don't use real stomachs anymore, it's a synthetic membrane. Well, it still sounds really gross. I've got it! So, we all got here by finding the weakest points in our own simulations, right? So all we have to do is find the weakest point in this layer of the simulation so that we can go another layer deeper. Then we can rewrite the whole simulation and program a way out of here. I don't know, it took me forever to find the weakest point in my timeline. Are you sure you can do it all over again? I already found it, it's right there. So that's what that was. I thought he spilled relish again. Let's go. Haggis. Gilts. Bagpipes. Highland. Right, so how do we get out of here? Oh, I wrote it down on my whiteboard. Let me just go grab. Anyone want a thumb wrestle? So we had the three all-time greats of sim games, Will Wright and his life sims, Sid Meier and his sim strategy games, and Chris Sawyer and his business sims. But the Bible said there'd be 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, so with Will Wright stuck under the hell of corporate management and the business sim trend slowly dying out due to market flooding, what came next?
Hi there! Over here!
Oh boy, the gates are open now. The modern simulator game is generally made by slapping together a bunch of store-bought Unity engine assets, pissing an AI-generated cover image on it, and pumping it out into early access. That might seem harsh, but I mean, come on, look at this shit. It's tough to pinpoint exactly where things started to go downhill, but I'd argue it was with Farming Simulator. This is a series that's been around since 2008, but started to really gain traction around 2013 to 15, where it started to make its way to consoles and not just PC. Unlike the business management sims of the 2000s, Farming Simulator eschewed the top-down, omniscient overseer style of gameplay in favor of making you personally put on your galoshes and get your hands dirty. While back in 2013, Farming Simulator also kinda looked like a mishmash of store-bought assets, it made up for it with some actually pretty involved gameplay and lots of licensed brands from actual heavy machinery manufacturers. This type of industry sim had been pretty big in Europe, especially Germany, for a while, but once the YouTube Let's Play market got a hold of Farming Simulator, it started to catch on in the rest of the world as well. And that of course led to another flood of similar games coming out and trying to recreate that breakout viral success. There was Surgeon Simulator, Car Mechanic Simulator, Bus Simulator, Lawn Mowing Simulator, Yandere Simulator, Goat Simulator, Let's Play Simulator. These are starting to get a little bit esoteric. A lot of these were really great simulations with a lot of care and effort putting into making them both realistic and fun. But for each Euro Truck simulator, there are about 100 that were just actual jokes, or what I like to call Let's Play bait. Games that tried to recreate the breakout success of Farming Simulator by weaseling their way onto the big Let's Play channels in the hope of becoming the next big YouTube trend. And these days, when they do, you end up with a couple hundred copycats also flooding stores, and half the time they all end up looking identical since they're all mostly made with store-bought assets encoded by ChatGPT. So honestly, what's the difference between Supermarket Simulator and Supermarket Owner Simulator and Supermarket Simulator 2026? And all that said, even though a lot of these games could be considered low-effort cash grabs, they do tend to scratch a certain itch. These games where you have a goal to work toward and all the time in the world to get there are great for just shutting your brain off and relaxing at the end of a long day. I can understand why people rack up hundreds of hours in these simulation games. And even though games like SimCity and the Tycoon games of the early 2000s have kinda lost their way, you do have newer games like City Skylines and Planet Coaster to pick up the slack. Once you sort through the slop, I'd argue that simulation games are in a bit of a second golden age right now. And if I ever found myself stranded in a dark, empty, alternate dimension, I'd be glad to have a game like House Flipper to pass the time with.
Have you got any twos?
Go fish.
Hey, wait, look over there.
It's the emergency simulation reset. Of course, every good simulation's got one. Okay, I've done some more calculations.
Come on, your calculations haven't got a great track record.
Come on, what are the odds of being wrong 3 times in a row? You could calculate them if we wanted the wrong answer. Listen, if we reset the simulation, it'll also patch up all the weak points, meaning all of our worlds will start over from the beginning of time and everything will proceed exactly as it did the first time, except when we go to get ourselves trapped here, we won't even be able to. It'll be like none of this ever happened. But wait, if you do that, what will happen to us, right now? I mean, if our simulated universes start over, sure, we'll all go through the exact same experiences, but will we really be the same people? And what about everything we've gone through here together? It'll be like none of us ever met. Are you really okay with just erasing all of that? I'm alright with that.
Yeah, me too, actually. Just like nothing against usually more of a question, but as long as we go away, I wanted to go see the Hunger Games this year, and I'm due to give a speech at the EU Summit.
Great, so it's settled. See you suckers never.
Get a load of this freak.
Wow, that's a lot of porn. That's what I'm saying.
I don't like doing laundry.
Now I'm here to present to you. Gran Turismo 5 Prologue is $40.
Son of a bitch!
I've triple checked my calculations and I believe that I found the weakest point in the simulation. Should be right about here. Oh, well, that's a bummer. I'm getting a hot dog.